Do you ever find yourself in a situation where the stress level is like way up here and you're thinking, what in the world am I going to do? Situations that are 100% out of your control and you feel helpless. It can be really difficult to know, how am I supposed to cope, right? If that has been you, then good news. In this video, I'm going to be sharing how I overcome those stressful situations where the anxiety is high, stress is high, and it's a situation that's totally out of my control. Hi, my name is Nadia Tari, and I'm a mom of 4. My 2 youngest kids have special needs. They can't walk, talk, or feed themselves, and they're fed through a G-tube. So I find myself in these situations all the time where I'm faced with a surgery, or my child is faced with a surgery, or just unusual situations where there's not much I can do, but yet I still have to cope, right? Do me a quick favor before we continue, before I dive right in, hit the like and subscribe. That would be so awesome. Okay, so the situation that my 2 younger children have, it's a very rare genetic syndrome called Allen-Herndon-Dudley syndrome, and it's really similar to cerebral palsy. So basically, their brain works, but their muscles don't work right, and so they're not able to walk, talk, or feed themselves, and they're fed through a G-tube. Well, currently, my boys are 4 and 6 years old, but a year ago, when my son Isaiah was 5 years old, he had to go into surgery to have his 2 lower salivary glands removed because he was choking on his own saliva. Now he gets all his food, all his medicine, and all his water through the G-tube. So we're not giving anything by mouth, but he was still choking a lot just on his saliva. So the doctors thought it would be a really good idea to prevent him from aspirating, to remove these 2 salivary glands, and they also removed his tonsils and a few other things. So anyway, the surgery was scheduled. He went in, and I was really nervous about him going under sedation because my nephew Amir, who had the very same syndrome that my 2 younger boys have, he actually stopped breathing when he was in the middle of one of his surgeries. So you can kind of see the concern that I had there. So I told the doctors, when Isaiah was a baby, it took him a really long time to come out of sedation and his muscles don't work right. I'm really concerned. They reassured me not to worry, that it's the medicine that they give for anesthesia is all based on weight and it would be fine. And I was like, okay. Well, it turns out that the surgery did go good and Isaiah didn't stop breathing. But guess what happened? After the surgery was over and he went to the recovery room, or it's where they try to come out of sedation, he wasn't coming out of sedation. Now, normally they expect 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe an hour most. Someone would normally come out of sedation. But in this situation, it had been over an hour and Isaiah still wasn't coming out of sedation. Now, I'm in the lobby waiting for them to call me back, or the waiting room. I was in the waiting room and they weren't calling me back. Can you see how my nerves were growing? My anxiety was getting higher and higher. And I thought, why haven't they called me back? What's going on? Oh no, don't tell me he's not coming out of sedation again. Well, after over an hour of me waiting in the lobby for him, the waiting room, they finally let me go back, even before he woke up. And the nurse that was tending to him said, I've tried quite a bit to get him to wake up and I just can't get him to wake up. So maybe if you talk to him or sing to him or do whatever that he loves, hopefully that'll get him to come out of sedation. And I did. I kissed him. I put my hands through his hair. I was singing to him because he loves it when I sing. I was, of course, talking to him, none of which worked. And, another 20 minutes went by, 40 minutes went by. Can you see how the anxiety is growing? Stress levels high. I'm thinking, dang, nothing's working. So then the nurse decided to take off Isaiah's blankets and she got a cold, wet washcloth and put it over his forehead. That didn't do it. He didn't open his eyes, nothing. Then she took that cold, wet washcloth and she put it underneath his armpits, hoping that would wake him up or at least get him to jostle a bit. Nope. Nothing. After over 2 hours of Isaiah still not coming out of sedation after the surgery was over, you better believe I was worried sick. And I started to ask the nurse, what happens when someone doesn't come out of sedation? And she was like, oh, don't worry. I'm sure he'll come out. It was just they had to give him a lot of heavy medicine because they were doing multiple surgeries, while he was under anesthesia. I said, I know. But what happens in the rare cases that someone doesn't actually come out of their sedation. And you know what? She didn't answer my question. I'm sure she didn't want me to stress. She didn't want me to worry. She already knew I was worried. And at that point, I pretty much had two choices. I could continue this cycle of asking questions and trying to figure out what I would do should my child not actually end up waking up, not actually end up coming out of sedation. And, is he going to be in a coma? Is he going to die? What's going to happen? Do you see how these thoughts, they could easily spiral out of control? But instead, I chose to focus on what I was thankful for, because the fact is, our brains cannot focus on both something that we're stressed about or having anxiety about, and focus on something that we're grateful for or thankful for at the same time. Our brains just aren't wired that way. I read a book by Dale Carnegie called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And this is such an excellent book. If you haven't read it, I highly suggest it. It's in that book that he talked about the fact that our brains are wired in such a way that we really can only focus on one or the other. So I decided, am I going to focus on the anxiety and the stress that I feel right now with the situation with my son not coming out of his sedation? Or instead, am I going to choose to focus on what I'm thankful for? And I decided, well, stressing and having anxiety, it's not really serving me. It's not helping me in any way. I'm going to choose to focus on what I'm thankful for. So instead, and I'm a Christian, so I started praying. I thanked God that Isaiah's surgery went well. I thanked God that Isaiah never stopped breathing during the whole surgery, like what had happened to my nephew. I thanked the Lord that Isaiah has excellent doctors and nurses to tend to him, and doctors that are really familiar with his very rare genetic syndrome that most people don't even know about. And so on, I kept thanking God for thing after thing after thing. I just was like, I wouldn't let my brain stop. And do you know what? After over 4 hours of his surgery ending and not coming out of a sedation, he finally woke up. He finally came to, and I was so happy. But the point of the story is to share that when you're in a situation where it's totally out of your control, it's not like you can pay someone money to fix a certain situation. Or, like if you need help with the dishes or laundry, you can hire a house cleaner or you can ask a friend to come over and help you. Those are easier problems, right? And they don't cause so much anxiety. Sometimes it's overwhelming. But then there's those situations where, what can you do? It seems so helpless, right? You feel like, this is so scary, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how things are going to turn out. And it can be very challenging to, first of all, be aware of your thoughts, and then take the effort and the energy. It takes work to change your thoughts. It's not easy. I'm not going to say that it is. But does it work? It does. It really does. So the next time that you find yourself in a situation where it's not looking good and you're super stressed and anxiety is through the roof, I want to encourage you to just stop, be aware of your thoughts, and then make the decision. Are you going to continue to let your thoughts spiral out of control, even though you have good reason, perfectly good reason to stay in that stressed state of mind, right? I had good reason. I could have stayed there. I could have said, how dare you? I mean, no one told me to change my thoughts, right? Just from all the personal development that I've done, I've learned how much power that we have just with our mind, And so if we can utilize our mind to help us instead of, putting us in a situation where we're having a panic attack, I mean, why would you want another panic attack if it could be avoided? And many, many times it can be avoided if you can become aware of your thoughts and then make the conscious choice to change your thoughts. So the next time your thoughts are spiraling out of control and it's a situation that you're really stressed about, having major anxiety, ask yourself, are these thoughts that I'm having, how are they serving me? Are they serving me? Meaning, are they helping you? Are they building you up? Or is it something that's tearing you down or causing you to worry more? So since we have the freedom to choose our thoughts, why don't we choose to change our thoughts? Since we can't focus on two things at once, being we can't focus on stress and anxiety and focus on something we're grateful for or thankful for, we've got to choose. Which one will you choose? I hope you'll choose to focus on whatever it is that you can think of that you're thankful for and grateful for, and enjoy the difference.